I got here the year before the civil disturbance in 1967. I went over to Woodward to Livernois Avenue, and lo and behold, several buildings had been burned down. That's when it really hit me that something inglorious was going on. A friend of mine, Tom Diggs, a National Guardman, refused to let him go and made him get back in his car and took the butt of his rifle and broke his nose. That incident changed my life. I got involved in what was going on in the city, the dialogue that was taking place. Being a Central Methodist Church, I met a lot of activist people. In April of 1968, we were having a meeting at my house on that Thursday evening when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Of course, two weeks earlier, he had spoken at Central Methodist Church. It got me to thinking that, is there anything that I could do?
Following the civil disturbance, Detroit was in rough shape. I can't say that Detroit would be where it is today had an organization like New Detroit not been formed, and he and Larry Doss pointed things in the directions that they did. At the time, it was the largest urban coalition in the country.
He invited me to join him as vice president of New Detroit, and subsequent to his departure, I became New Detroit's third president, where I served for 13 years before getting into the automobile industry.
I've known Walt Douglas for 40 years. And I think I first met him probably in the mid-'80s when he was with New Detroit. I think one of the important times with Walt and myself was when he bought Avis Ford. And Walt cared a lot about customers, but it was Walt's leadership that really, I think, took Avis Ford to where it is today. And of course, now his son Mark, and he is now the head of Avis Ford.
As we've shaped what Avis Ford is and what we choose to stand for in the community, the DSO has always been at the top of the list in that regard.
The concept of a community that invests in its arts fits perfectly with who Walt Douglas is. As president of New Detroit, Walt was placed in lots of different places, lots of different opportunities, and one of them, of course, was the DSO board in the 1980s.
I worked with the orchestra. They invited me to become a member of the board, and I did, and worked with some of the most prominent members of that board at that time.
The DSO, for lots of reasons, him being one of them, began to look more outward, to understand that a symphony belongs to an entire community and that it has to welcome in new people and you welcome people where they are. Walt Douglas is an ideal honoree. He is an individual who has been quite intentional in the way he's lived his life and invested in his community. He's an individual who has invested in the next generation.
He's always been the individual to give a kind word or to offer advice. He's always looking to improve the situation, and he's a constant influence to, I think, everyone he comes to contact with.
When he came to New Detroit, he came in with an approach that was one that allowed different people to speak to each other with respect and to listen to each other. And that's one of the big deals about Walt Douglas. He listens much more than he talks.
I think Detroit's a better community because they got to know Walt.
During my period on this earth, I tried to make things better than they were before I got here. And I've never stopped trying. And I never will.